Hello and welcome to another episode of Autogefuhl, today with me AJ and Jonas. On today's episode, we're going to be taking a closer look at the all-new BMW M4.
Go. 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, that's 100 right there.
First thing that you can't ignore are these huge grills. I think it's not apt to call them kidney grills anymore, they're more like lung grills. But you know what? In this M4, guys, with this really aggressive front bumper, these huge indentations on the top of the hood, and these really sleek headlights, these aerodynamic channels, it kind of works for me, especially that it's in black and we don't have that frame. Up front, you get 19-inch wheels, but as is the case from before, the rear wheels are wider and bigger, so those are 20 inches. We have some M Sport or M Competition badging on the side over here, and as we move further along, you see that the outside rearview mirror cap is carbon fiber, thanks to that carbon fiber pack. The boot has a carbon fiber spoiler. It's quite subtle, but it definitely helps in the aerodynamics, and because it's in carbon fiber, it does pop, as do these gorgeous rear lights. Of course, they're in LED, and they dip down and curve upwards, whereas in the M3, they're more horizontal. All right, let's take a look under the hood. The M4 is powered by one of my favorite engines, the S58. Here in the more revised version, you can also see there's some more strut bars to provide more rigidity. And this is a 3-liter inline-6 bi-turbo petrol engine, which makes 480 PS in the standard M4 and 510 PS in the competition. The standard M gets a rear-wheel drive only 6-speed manual option. The M3 M4 Competition gets an 8-speed automatic only, but you can still have it either rear-wheel drive or all-wheel drive. The standard M3 M4 does 0 to 100 in just over 4 seconds, so around 4.2. The Competition does it just under 4, around 3.9, and the VMAX is around 290 kilometers per hour. And yeah, it sounds fantastic. Let's take a look inside. Of course, the main difference with the M4 and the M3, first thing are the window frame, or the lack thereof actually, because as a coupe, you don't get any window frame. But the door is long and it still has that tight, taut, well-engineered, solid build quality that we know from BMW. Soft touch materials here, soft touch materials here. Of course, very vibrant orange color, very orange soda, but you can choose another color, and honestly, the outside looks so daring and bold. The colors are really flashy, so why not also have a flashy color for the interior? On the inside, you will notice that this car has the optional bucket seats, which are carbon fiber. Really nice, very lightweight, but you know, they still have leather on the inside in these areas, and I think they should have had more Alcantara options. You do have a little bit of Alcantara over here though. The seat, however, is still adjustable electronically, and it still even has a couple memories, so while it is a carbon fiber racing bucket seat, it's still not completely barren. Let's take a quick seat inside. So, getting inside, it's not that challenging, but you have to bend down because the seat also has a higher bolstering here on the side. Plus the coupe roof, this is a little bit shorter than the M3, so you kind of have to lean over to get inside. But once you're in, there's plenty of headroom. I'm 5'8" or about 1.73 meters. Steering wheel is very familiar, but it's nice and grippy. It's got carbon fiber here. It's a progressive steering rack, which means the rate of change of steering increases the further you go into the lock. I really like, however, these carbon fiber paddle shifters for the 8-speed automatic. There's a little bit of a different tactile feel between the upshift and the downshift paddle. The buttons on the left-hand side of the steering wheel control the cruise control. You also have an M1 button, which you can configure to set up the different parameters for the engine, transmission, suspension, and so on. Another button over here that you can also set up so you can have a quick change of driving mode on the fly. So on the instrument cluster here, you see I'm not really sold on the anti-clockwise tachometer, but yeah, if you go to M mode, it changes a little bit, but it's still not the most intuitive. But you can choose what you want to see on it. There's a button here on the right-hand side with which you can change, for example, to see your trip computer and things like that. Let's move our attention to the main touchscreen. It's very slick. There's also voice command, wireless connection for your phone with Android Auto, Apple CarPlay. You can see the different setup for the different driving modes that you have for the engine, suspension, steering, and brake feel. Of course, we've been driving really spiritedly on the track here today, so you're seeing really high numbers. But a realistic estimate, if you're going to spend a lot of time on the Autobahn, I would say is around 10 perhaps. Unfortunately, this is not a realistic figure that we have to share with you today. But some fun stuff, for example, this is an M car, so we have an M menu, where you can configure, first of all, your M1 and M2 button and the head-up display and the cluster, but there's also something called an M drift analyzer. This is pretty cool because when you activate this, it will measure how many drifts you did, how long you did them for, what distance you covered, and the angle of the drift. Well, another benefit of having these carbon fiber bucket seats is that because of these openings and the fact that it's a lot slimmer than the standard sport seats, I have a little bit more knee room. Like I said, I'm 1.73 meters, or about 5'8", so I have enough knee room. I don't have so much space to slide my feet under the front seat, of course, because it's so low, but yeah, it's a small win. The trunk capacity of the M4 is 440 liters. It's a pretty usable space, but still, it's 40 liters less than the M3. So let's see how the M4 Competition behaves on the racetrack. We've set up some cones here in this old airfield, and we're going to really test the handling characteristics of this car. But let's also keep in mind that because the M3 Competition, well, the M3 and the M4, both of them share the same platform, so the wheelbase is the same, the drivetrain, powertrain are all the same, really. So we can expect very similar performance from the M3. So in conclusion, we can kind of, combine these two and to understand how this new 6th gen M3, M4 behave. So right now, let's go into the M1 mode. So here we can see that the engine is in sport, the steering is in comfort, the braking is in comfort, and the gearbox is also, it's in 3 mode. So basically it's going to shift up as late as possible and maintain the gear and shift down as early as possible to give the most throttle response. Let's do a simple lap to just get used to the track, a sighting lap. Already I can tell you that this car handles so neutrally. Even with just rear wheel drive, there's plenty of traction. Steering is also really great. Right now it's in comfort mode, but we can see even the suspension is in comfort. So being an airfield, as you can imagine, there's a few dips here and there, and you don't really feel that sharp, that bump that much at all. The engine sounds really nice on the inside. The body is really well controlled, hard on the brakes. It's a little bit not linear, but let's see how it behaves in the M2 mode.
Shifts are pretty good right now. I'm letting the transmission do all the thinking for me in the M1 mode. Going through the chicane, really balanced chassis. You can control the steering a little bit with the throttle. Very neutral. Visibility is pretty good, but this A-pillar is actually quite thick, and those rear view mirrors look great in carbon fiber, I know, but I don't know what they could have done, but it really impedes the view down this way. And right now, this is a very narrow section of this track with these cones. I don't want to run over any of them. But yeah, steering here, really fantastic. Look deep into the corner, slow on the throttle. This car is so much fun to drift. I've been drifting it before on the drift pad, and it's super easy, especially with that new M traction control. It does the thinking for you, so even a novice like me can pull really epic drifts. Let's go into M2, and now to activate M2, you have to confirm by pressing it twice. Now the engine is in Sport Plus, the suspension is also in Sport Plus, so it's a little bit stiffer. Steering is in Sport, which means it's heavier. And the brakes are also sharper. So that bump still doesn't feel really bad. There's also a really nice head-up display which shows you the rev counter and so on. So it's really easy to see when you have to shift. And the engine, actually, there's so much of a difference between M1 and M2. Really, you're not getting that full 510 if you're not in this. And again, taking control of that manually with the paddle shifters, it's not as fast as Porsche PDK. It's not terrible, of course. It's still a torque converter, so I guess it's inherently in its design. So maybe a manual might be more for the purist. Oops, see, hit the red line because when I wanted to shift up, it took a little bit longer than I anticipated. Again, then I guess it just means it's a matter of getting used to it.
Let's summarize today's episode. The price for the M3 starts at around 82,500. The M4 is not much different, just about 1,500 euros more. But, of course, there's a lot of options that you can add, and of course, if you get the M competition version, the M4 competition or the M3 competition, you're looking at numbers easily around 100,000 euros. So for that price, are you still getting that muscle car, that beast, the M3 that we've always known and loved? The answer is yes. It's a little bit different now because it looks a lot more different. And yeah, some areas I think could still be improved a little bit, like the steering feedback as well as the gear change. But on the whole, my recommendation would be keep it simple and then you will love it. So stick with the rear-wheel drive manual version depending on your design and practicality preferences. I would personally take the M3, but it's up to you guys what you really prefer. But I think then you really have a gem because it's practical enough, it's engaging enough, you can drive it every day because it's so much more comfortable, and that engine, that's the real gem. So that's my verdict. Let me know what you think. Put it down in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.